Hello, welcome to today's video. We are on pages 72 and 73 of the Keyboard Musicianship Book 1. This is Unit 2. These are just supplementary pages that prepare us for the Chapter 2 quiz. So the first part is talking about improvisation or improvising. Improvisation means to create music spontaneously without rehearsal or without practice or study. We use knowledge that we have learned previously to create music. In these three examples, we are learning about taking a melody and a rhythm, and we're going to create a response based on those first two measures. So in a way, it's like call and response. So it says here that we should follow the instructions for each example, improvising the endings that will help you understand the elements dealt with thus far. And it says, don't worry about making mistakes, because in improvisation, apparently there are no mistakes, but actually there are. But right now, since we're learning, it's perfectly fine. We're just learning how to discover what improvisation is all about. So use repetition. Repetition means you either take a melody and repeat it again, or you take a rhythm and repeat that rhythm in a different melodic structure. Okay, and it says here also to think about moving toward the home tone, which is the first note of the pentachord pattern. So first of all, you need to establish what are the keys, or what's the pentachord pattern of these melodies. The first one, we notice that it starts with E, but then it goes to C, so that maybe will tell us that this could be in the key of C major, which is the C pentascale, or pentachord. My example of a response to the first two measures would go as follows. So as you can see, I used imitation, which was in a way the same kind of rhythm or melodic structure. It could have also been a sequence. And I just changed the melody a little bit around. And I just created a response that ended on C. Let's take a look now at the number 2 example. It says here, improvise a 2-bar ending using any of the following rhythmic values. It could be any of them that we've learned so far. So let's go ahead and listen to this first melody. And since we are given so many options of rhythms to choose from, it's practically endless, the amount of varieties that we can come up with. Remember, though, that it must end on D, because this is going to be D pentascale or pentachord because of that F sharp. My example would go as follows. As you can see, I did a little bit of a different type of rhythm from the first part, and then created a different structure, or now even used some repetition with the notes. Keep in mind, though, this is a left-handed melody. Stuff may be happening in another hand while we play this. Now on to number 3. Improvise a 2-bar ending to the phrase using triads on white keys. And it says here, move by steps. So when you're playing your white keys from the scale degrees exercise, only move by seconds. So that means you can't skip from C to E or to G. You have to move by seconds like this. Not like that. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to the first 2 measures. remember, whatever you come up with, you have to return to the first triad, C major. So if you get stuck up here somewhere and it's just a beat or so away to the last beat of second measure, you're going to be stuck. You have to have enough beats in order to get back to this home chord right there. Okay, now one other thing to keep in mind is improvisation is when we create music without rehearsal. So we're not really playing and then we're going to stop and see what the next chord will be. When we do it that way, that's more of composition or composing. Improvisation means that the tempo begins and it continues until you're done with the piece. So you cannot really slow down or stop to think about what your next melodic or harmonic choice is going to be. You have to start and end without any stops. So whatever comes to mind, play that melody or play that decision and make it happen. Make sure that you play it enough times, repeat it over and over again after you finish, that you can write it down in the provided spaces here. Okay, so that is improvising. It says here now, make up an 8-measure piece using a right hand E major pentachord and a left hand 5th accompaniment. It says here, choose a meter, tempo, and mood before proceeding. Now this one here, I think is more of a composition exercise. If you would like to make it a simple improvisation, I would say maybe turn on the metronome to make sure that you're doing 8 beats, or 8 measures, and you can either be in 3/4 time or 4/4 time. It's up to you. Okay, so come up with that one, please, and then we will listen to it and talk about how it is. Next, it says technique on page 72. The exercises and studies in this section demonstrate technical concepts presented in the chapter. It says here, transpose each exercise as indicated. Now, this is our introduction to transposition. We have not talked about that yet. Transposition means to take a melody, such as that C major scale, and to put it in a new key. We have not talked about keys yet, or maybe we have. A key is a different little set of accidentals which are placed at the beginning of the piece before the time signature to indicate whether some of the notes will have sharps or flats. So if we were to take this melody, which is using the major pentachord scale, what we can do is simply play it like this. 2, 3, 4, and it says there at the bottom, transpose to G, F, and D major. So in order to do that, you have to first understand what the scale degrees are for G, F, and D major. And then, of course, you have to know what the key signatures of those scales are as well. G major we know has the F sharp in it, F major we know has B flat, and D major we know has C sharp and F sharp. So let's go ahead and take this major pentachord scale study, and we're going to go ahead and play it in the original key, C major. 2, 3, 4. To transpose it to G major, what we simply do is take our hands, place it in G position, or the G pentachord scale, or pentachord area, and we simply play the same notes, but in this key. As you can see, that didn't require any black keys because we were staying within the 5 keys of G major pentascale. Now let's go ahead and take it to F major. Now the 5 keys of the F pentascale are these ones here, which do include a black key. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. course, lastly, for D major, our 5 keys from the pentascale are these ones, including that F sharp right there. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and study a little bit more about transposition a little bit later, and of course, into the next section. Now, 2-note slur exercises from page 73. This is simply a little bit of an extension of what we have already learned from the 5-finger exercise number 3. It says here, let the wrist gently, or lift the wrist gently, after each group of 2 notes. Roll the wrist toward the fall board, like this. Shorten the second note of each 2-note slur, remember, to play it softer, and of course to keep the steady pulse. It says here, the dash below the final C for the right hand and above is a tenuto marking. That's a different type of articulation that we have not yet learned about. It says here, the tenuto means to hold the note for its full value, a little bit heavier in other words. Listen to this demonstration of the 2-note slur exercises. We're doing contour motion. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, 2-note slurs can occur within any kind of interval. Now, let's go to number 2. And then on number 3, it can also occur with these kinds of intervals, from a 5th to a 3rd, with a staccato at the end or a half note. Okay, it says here, looking ahead at the bottom of page 73. In chapter 3, the major scale is introduced. We may have already learned about the major scale. Scales are easily built by dividing 8 notes between the hands. If you would like, study and play the C major scale below. Tend to the fingering. And that's all we have time for today. Please practice well and prepare for your quiz.